everybody. Welcome to this week's asynchronous content. This week, we're going to be talking about teaching community, daily living, and domestic skills. Now, I want to make sure that before we start, that you know this is just an overview. It is an introduction. And the reason that I say that is because there's no way I could, even in a semester, cover all of the community skills. So if you think about going to the grocery store, going to the doctor, going to a festival in the park, transportation, you think about daily living and domestic skills, things from like cooking to using a microwave to using a dishwasher, to taking care of your personal hygiene. There's so many skills that we can't cover all of those. But I do want to let you know, in the past, I've had students say, oh, I can't wait till we get to functional skills or community skills. I can't wait to learn how to teach those skills. And I want to just remind you that you already have the knowledge and the ability to teach any skill. So when you're thinking about teaching these skills, draw on the knowledge that you already have that we've learned about early in this semester and in past semesters. Things like model lead tests, like response prompting, a system of least prompts, constant time delay. Think about things like stimulus prompts. Think about things like reinforcement and error correction, UDL. So again, you already have the skills. So we're going to do a quick overview of this. And then a lot of this is just going to have to be individualized to your students, to their current abilities, and then to the environment in which they're learning the skills, because one grocery store looks different than another one, for example. So before we get started, I just want to do a quick check-in and see how is everyone holding up at this point in the semester. And this is not a question that'll be numbered for the document that you turn in, but you can just put the number down on your document if you would, so I can do a check-in with you and see how you're doing. Is this how you're feeling? Or are you just absolutely exhausted and don't know how you're going to get through the rest of the semester at this point? If that's the case, put a 1. If you're like, I'm great, why wouldn't I be? You can take whether or not that's serious yourself. Put a number 2. If you are like, I am just ready to go, I'm so ready for this semester to be over with, I cannot wait, give me a 3. And then if you're feeling a little nervous at this point in the semester, it could be because of, exams coming up. It could be that maybe you're not where you want to be with your grades at this point, or you've got some assignments that still need to be turned in. But if you could put that number down, it'd be great because it'll help me do a quick check-in with everybody, okay? Also, a reminder that you have gotten a couple of certificates with some of the modules you have completed. I highly encourage you to print those off or to store those somewhere on your computer with your job applications, because they are great to turn in with your resume when you are applying for teaching positions, because again, shows you have some extra training. Also, a reminder that you have a try and apply for science, you're on your science lesson that is coming due. If you have not completed your other try and applies, please get those in as quickly as possible. I know that for some of you, holidays or some situations with students might delay that a little bit. So if you have not gotten them in, the due date is flexible on those, okay? If you need to do revisions on any of your other lessons, make sure that you get those in immediately. We want to make sure everybody is on track to complete assignments and to complete them in time to do revisions if needed, okay? This week, you're not going to have a discussion guide. Instead, you have a module on independent living. Save that certificate, okay? Also, want to remind you of extra credit opportunities. You have one for 5 points. It is an interview with your cooperating teacher on your safety and crisis management plan for your school. So there's some information on that on your Canvas, on our Canvas website. Not only that, you can do a try and apply, another one in science. You could do another one in math, whatever subject you want to do another try and apply for. It's only the reflection part of that. You do not have to turn in a lesson plan, just the reflection on those. And all of those are worth 5 points each, so that's 15 points that you could get in extra credit. This week, what are we going to be doing? Again, we're going to be talking about community, daily living, and domestic skills. We're going to watch some videos, especially we're going to watch some in class, and we're going to do a little discussion and debate on so how do we teach community and daily living domestic skills. You're going to be doing some small group work, and then we're going to be learning about ecological inventories this week. As always, your learning objectives are in the PowerPoint, and they are on Canvas. So we want to start with question number one. This will be first question in the document you turn in for this week. Are what are some examples of domestic and community skills, daily living skills? So just give me a couple of examples of each. Again, this is going to be a quick write, and then come on back and join me, all right? All right, so we'll talk about different examples later on in the PowerPoint. I look forward to seeing what you have. So when we're looking at community, daily living, and domestic skills, like why are we looking, what are we going to be teaching? What is this all about? Well, really, it's about teaching our students skills that are needed to access the community and independent living. Because if you think about it, that is our ultimate goal is independence or independence at the highest level possible towards independence. And so when we think about the things that we engage in that fall under these categories, it's things like health. Like, what do you do if you have to take medication with food or at a specific time? How do you know? What kind of support do you have in place for you to remember to take that medication? What about like personal hygiene? Think about all the things you do for personal hygiene. It could be anything from taking a bath or a shower, brushing your teeth, brushing your hair, washing your hands before you eat, brushing your teeth. Again, lots and lots of skills. Think about things you need for organization and time management. I know right now, with you all being in school, with those of you who are working, those of you who have family, you're really having to plan and how do you manage all of your time and how do you get a little self-care in there at some point? Think about things like cooking and grocery shopping, using money, transportation. What if you couldn't drive? For example, what if you couldn't drive and you had to get a town or two over, for example, to go to, I don't know, Walmart to pick up a prescription? How would you get there? What would you do? And then thinking about recreation and leisure. And a lot of people think that like recreation and leisure, like why are we teaching that? Everybody knows what they like to do, but that's not the case, right? So if you think about, I want you to stop right now. And I want you to think about something that you love, something that you engage in doing on a regular basis, for example, or something that when you do it, you just really love that time. All right, think about that for a second. And then how did you learn that? How did you learn that skill? So you might say, "Oh, I love to craft." Well, how did you learn to craft? Or, I love baseball. I love going out and playing baseball. How did you learn to play baseball? Or you might say, "I am a Seahawks fan all the way." How did you become a Seahawks fan? How did that happen? And so, with our students with complex support needs, we have to explicitly teach those things. We have to explicitly teach. These are recreation and leisure activities. These are how you explore activities to find out what you do like. And here is how you can engage in those activities. So now I want you to stop for question number two and write down why is teaching community, daily living, and domestic skills, why is that even important for our students? All right. So here's some reasons why it's important. It doesn't mean that what you put is not correct because there are many, many reasons. But some of the reasons are because it gives our students and later on adults, because remember, they're going to graduate, they're going to get out of school, and they're going to be adults just like you are. It gives them access to the community. Think about the joy that you get from accessing the community and the resources you have access to. It promotes independence. And again, that's our ultimate goal. And think about where you are in life and how you enjoy and engage in things independently and what that means to you and your growth as a person. It promotes self-determination. Again, you're at an age in life where you're making decisions on your own. You're doing what you want to do when you want to do it, and you're having to decide what are those things and what matters to me and where do I want to spend my time. We want our students to be able to do those exact same things. It improves the quality of your life if you can engage in community skills. It improves the quality of life if you can complete daily living skills on your own. It improves the quality of life if you can cook your own meals, the ones that you choose, for example. It also supports that transition to adulthood. And we always, always, always have to remember it doesn't matter if your students are 6 or your students are 16, that eventually they are leaving the school. And we have to plan from day one to make sure that our students are prepared for adulthood and life after school. It increases safety. Again, if you think about how do we engage in the community, if you need to take a bus, you need to know how to get where to get off and how to get off, how to determine where that is. That's a safety issue, for example. And not only that, this is really important, is it reduces caregiver responsibilities. A lot of times we think about what we teach from the point of view of the students, but there are many other people that are engaged in our students' lives. And so if we can decrease the responsibilities of their caregivers, it increases the quality of life for everyone. And so back in the early 2000s, in 2011, early there was a big debate. So what happened was, for example, I've been teaching since the Stone Age. So back in the Stone Age, I taught functional skills. That's what I did. My students, we learned how to bathe ourselves. How did we do that? Well, we had big plastic shower curtains. Everybody had a bathing suit that they kept at school. Everybody had a tub. They had a washcloth. They had a towel. They had a bar of soap. And we used to sit in chairs in a circle. It's crazy to think about this, but it's real. And they would learn how to bathe themselves. After lunch, they always brushed their teeth. After breakfast, they always brushed their teeth. We had clothes. We would wash clothes and we would learn to fold clothes. And we did a lot of community-based instruction where we would learn how do we go out? What are the behaviors you need to be successful in the community at a restaurant, for example. And so when No Child Left Behind came along, and then with IDEA and the push for access to the general curriculum, there were some concerns that arose. There was a big debate that developed related to functional skills versus academic skills. And so Ayers et al. Back in 2011 came out with an article that was entitled, very catchy title, I Can Identify Saturn, but I Can't Brush My Teeth. And so they noted that there was this big shift to the standard-based academic instruction. And their concern is that it came at the expense of students learning functional and life skills. And so when we think about life, what really is important in life? Is it really important that you be able to cook for yourself or you be able to take a bus to go to the mall to hang out with friends, those types of things? And so that push towards standards-based instruction was a concern for some people. And then there was a reply that came from Cordaid et al. And it was 7 reasons to promote standard-based instruction, and it was a reply to Ayers et al. And what they said was you can still have standard-based academic instruction, and instead of having it to the exclusion of functional or daily living skills, that you should use that academic instruction to promote those skills, that they don't have to happen separately. Or you don't have to choose only one or the other. You can teach both of them. And so some people started looking at it, and there was a group of people who really valued the functional skills. They were like, listen, what gets you through life is not being able to distinguish between condensation, evaporation, and precipitation. It's being able to be successfully engage with the community and with people and use manners and have social skills and take care of yourself. That's what really matters. And then there was another group that was like, but we've included these individuals from academic skills forever. We don't even know what they could do. Not only that, they have a right to access to the general curriculum. Because think about how science would have been something that really wouldn't have been taught out before, except for if it was science related to safety. They were like, science teaches wonder. And if you can teach wonder, think about how that changes people's lives. If you can teach them how to wonder and ask questions and then find out the answers to those questions, that's a huge daily living skill. Or you need math. We need higher order math for our students instead of just like basic counting and simple addition, because it gives them access to let's say like higher paying jobs or access to more jobs. It makes them more independent. And math is embedded in everything we do. And then there were people who were like, hey, listen, we don't have to do one to the exclusion of the other. We can do them both. And we can embed functional skills throughout the day. And we can embed academics into functional skills. And so what you need to know is the federal law says it's okay. You can have functional skills on the IEP if that's what the students needs. And that's what the student needs. And as a matter of fact, what has come out is that teaching community daily living and domestic skills actually enhances academic skills because you might, again, let's say you're working on money and you're teaching money skills, the dollar more strategy, and that's what you're teaching in your class. Well, if you go out into the real world, into the community, and you actually use that skill, it enhances that skill. Think about generalization, right? And so what you can do is you just can teach them both simultaneously. They're not mutually exclusive. So what I want you to prepare you for is that in class, we're going to do a debate and we're going to have one group. Group one is going to support teaching functional skills. That's what their focus is going to be on. And then group two is going to be focused on teaching academic skills. So if you're one of those people that wants to prepare ahead of time, so have some ideas, just want to give you a heads up that that's coming our way on Monday. And so let's look at what this would look like. We're going to look at a lesson, and this is teaching cooking skills to an individual with a disability. And this has just a little bit of everything in it. So let's look at it. You know what? Let me turn my volume up real quick. I want to turn it up so I can make sure you all can hear it. Thank you for your patience. There we go. And so let's watch this, and it has a little bit of everything in it.
Why is it important to work on cooking skills? Working on cooking skills helps people to develop independence. A lot of times, individuals with special needs have to live in 24-hour care environments. But if they were able to make themselves a simple meal or snack, they would be able to live in a less restricted environment. Working on cooking skills can also help with academics. Individuals must scan from left to right, as they would have to in reading. So you're working on academics at the same time as a preparation for reading skills by using these recipes. Working on cooking skills is also a wonderful way to work on fine motor skills as well as upper extremity strengthening. Most activities involve bilateral coordination, fine motor skills, and various grasps. Working on cooking skills can be very motivating. The individual has a product to show at the end of the time, and of course they can eat it. This way they can bring an item, if they have one item even that they can cook that is their thing to bring to a potluck or a party, it helps them to feel more important and to be a valued member of that group. Cooking skills is also a wonderful way to work on sensory processing. By cooking, individuals are exposed to new smells, colors, textures. This way, even if someone is a picky eater or a selective eater and they may not want to eat the food, they're involved in the process of cooking it. Also, if you're doing this in a group or individually, someone may be willing to try something that they wouldn't otherwise eat.
All right. So what we saw there was just a variety of skills all being taught within the framework of a domestic skill. So question number three, how might what you saw in this video impact your instructional planning in the future? So think about like your academic skills. She even talked about social skills. You get to take this thing that you've made to the potluck, and then everybody's excited, and they're all as they begin to anticipate, right, that that's what you're going to bring. So think about that, the academic skills, the social skills, the domestic skills. You can even think about how the student feels about themselves. How might what you saw in this video impact your instructional planning in the future? Go ahead and do a quick write and then come right back. All right. So the next one, this is a quickie. What are a few community, daily living, or domestic skills that you participated in today? And so I want you to think about just start when you got up in the morning and to where you are right now in your day. And I want you just to start listing. List as many as you can. Let's say you time it for a minute to a minute and a half and list as many things as you can because I want you to start thinking about how many of these skills you engage in on a daily basis. So go ahead and write that and then come back. All right, so some examples of community and daily living skills or domestic skills could be things like food preparation. It could be performing a household chore such as vacuuming, safety skills. Again, think about safety skills like how do you use a knife when you're cutting food. We talked about leisure and recreation skills already. Think about public transportation where you are, because it might be different than where I am. Where I am, we have Uber. They're not very frequent. We have a few of them, and that's different compared to like a big city, right? But we have a bus system. We have access to walking. A lot of things are within walking distance, but it may be very different for you if you're in a more rural area or a more urban area. Also, think about self-care skills, all of the things that you do to care for yourself throughout a day. Those are examples of skills that we also want to teach our students. And so it's important that you realize that these are often skills that you learn incidentally. Nobody necessarily directly taught you them, although they may have, but a lot of these we learn incidentally. We learn by just seeing other people do them or having people do them with us, inviting us to join in. But that's not always the case with students with complex support needs. So you may have been asked to wash dishes with your mom or your dad when you were younger, your grandma, but many of our students may not have been asked to do that. And so they require support with not only acquiring those skills, but synthesizing those skills. So maybe you learn to wash dishes first, then you learn to dry dishes, then you learn to put dishes away. Well, can you synthesize those to complete that whole task when you've learned them individually? Remembering what skills need to be done or the steps within the skills, and then applying the skills in their natural context. And so, as we know, generalization can be difficult for our population. So, we have to make sure that we are intentionally, explicitly, and systematically teaching these skills. All right, just go ahead and do a quick self-evaluation. How are you feeling about that so far? What are you thinking about community, domestic, and daily living skills? You're feeling great? I'm so-so, or I'm completely lost. You know, if you have any questions, as always, please make sure that you write them at the end of this document since you don't have a discussion guide. So the last question on here will be, what are you feeling confident about? What questions do you have? And I'll make sure that I get those in our next session. All right, I'll see you in the next video.